Imagine being 24 years old, madly in love and planning your dream wedding. Now imagine your fiancé suddenly turning violent, hitting you and disappearing for days without explanation. For 14 years I thought he had lost his mind. Last week my mother confessed the truth. What she told me didn't just break my heart, it revealed a betrayal so deep, it destroyed my ability to love again. But sometimes, the universe has a funny way of serving justice. If you've ever wondered how far family manipulation can go, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video if you believe in karma, and stick around because this story will make you question everything you think you know about the people closest to you. Trust me, you won't see this ending coming. Let me take you back to 2010. I was 24, working at a small marketing firm in Chicago and completely head over heels for a guy named Marcus. He was 22, studying engineering, with these warm brown eyes that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. We'd been together for 2 years, and those were honestly the happiest years of my life. Marcus wasn't like the other guys I'd dated. He listened when I talked about my dreams. He made me laugh until my stomach hurt. When I had bad days at work, he'd show up at my apartment with Chinese takeout and terrible Netflix movies. He made me feel safe, loved, and beautiful. In the fall of 2010, he proposed. I remember every detail of that moment. We were walking through Millennium Park, the leaves were changing colors, and he just stopped in the middle of the path. No big speech, no fancy restaurant, just him, getting down on one knee with tears in his eyes, saying, "Sarah, I can't imagine my life without you." I said yes before he even finished the question. We started planning our wedding for the following summer, June or July, we thought, something small and beautiful. I was so excited to finally introduce him to my family. You see, my parents lived in a different state, and with work and school we'd never found the right time for a proper visit. But there was one problem. Marcus couldn't afford to fly back to his hometown for Christmas, so my parents invited him to stay with us at their house in Ohio. I was thrilled. Finally, the most important people in my life would meet. I should have known something was wrong from the moment we walked through their front door. My mom, Linda, gave Marcus this tight smile, the kind she reserved for door-to-door salesmen and people she immediately decided she didn't like. My dad, Robert, barely looked up from his newspaper when I introduced them. The air felt thick and uncomfortable. "You can stay in Emma's room," my mom told Marcus, referring to my younger sister who was away at college. "Sarah, you'll be in your old room, of course." That first night at dinner, the interrogation began. "So, Marcus, what exactly do you plan to do with that engineering degree?" my dad asked, cutting his steak with more force than necessary. "Well, sir, I'm hoping to work in renewable energy. Solar power specifically. I think it's the future." My mom laughed, not a kind laugh. "Solar power? That sounds very uncertain. Sarah needs stability." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. "Mom, Marcus is brilliant. He's going to do amazing things." "Of course he is, dear," she said, in that patronizing tone I remembered from childhood. But the real tension came from something else entirely. My brother Jake, who was 26 and still living at home after a series of failed relationships, seemed to be the golden child. Every conversation somehow turned back to Jake's job at the bank, Jake's recent promotion, Jake's everything. "You know, Jake's been looking for someone special too," my mom mentioned over breakfast, looking directly at Marcus. "It's so hard for good men to find lasting love these days." Marcus squeezed my hand under the table, and I could see the confusion in his eyes. The visit was supposed to last a week. By day 3, something shifted in Marcus that I couldn't understand. I woke up that morning to find him standing by the window in Emma's room, fully dressed, with a strange, distant look on his face. "Hey, good morning," I said, reaching for him. He pulled away, actually pulled away from me. "We need to talk," he said, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. "Okay, what's wrong?" His eyes were red, like he'd been crying or hadn't slept. "Sarah, I need you to be honest with me about something." My heart started pounding. "Marcus, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "Are you seeing someone else?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "What? No. Marcus, how could you even ask me that?" "Don't lie to me." His voice was louder now, shaking with anger and pain. "I know, okay? I know about him." I stared at him in complete shock. "Marcus, I have no idea what you're talking about. There is no one else. There has never been anyone else since we started dating." But he wouldn't listen. For the next 2 hours he grilled me about imaginary affairs, about lies I'd never told, about betrayals that existed only in his mind. When I kept denying everything, because there was nothing to admit, his frustration turned to rage. That's when he hit me. Not hard, but enough to leave a red mark on my arm, enough to make me gasp and step backward. The Marcus I loved, the gentle man who cried at movies and brought me soup when I was sick, had just struck me. "Oh my God," he whispered, looking at his own hand like it belonged to someone else. "Sarah, I didn't mean..." But the damage was done. Something had broken between us, and I didn't understand what or why. He left that afternoon, just packed his bags and walked out, saying he needed time to think. I was devastated, confused, and completely alone in my parents' house. "Honey, maybe this is for the best," my mom said, rubbing my back as I cried in the kitchen. "You're so young. There's plenty of time to find the right person." "But he is the right person," I sobbed. "I don't understand what happened." Marcus came back 3 days later, apologetic but still distant. This pattern continued for months, him leaving for days at a time, coming back angry and suspicious, asking me questions about affairs that didn't exist, accusing me of lying about things I'd never done. The man I'd fallen in love with was disappearing before my eyes, replaced by someone angry, violent, and cruel. He'd grab my shoulders too hard when he was upset. He'd yell at me for talking to male coworkers. He'd disappear for entire weekends without explanation. By spring 2011, I couldn't take it anymore. The Marcus I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, and frankly, someone I was starting to fear. "You need help," I told him during one of our fights. "This isn't normal, Marcus. The way you're acting, the things you're accusing me of, I think you should talk to someone, a therapist maybe." That suggestion sent him into a rage worse than any before. He threw a glass against the wall, called me manipulative, said I was trying to make him think he was crazy. "Maybe I am crazy," he shouted. "Maybe knowing that the woman I love is lying to my face every single day is driving me insane." I stood there in my living room, looking at this stranger wearing my fiancé's face, and made the hardest decision of my life. "We're done," I said quietly. "I'm giving you back the ring." He stared at me for a long moment, his chest heaving, tears streaming down his face. Then he took the ring and walked out of my life forever. For 14 years, I blamed myself. I thought maybe I hadn't been supportive enough during whatever mental breakdown he was having. I replayed every conversation, every fight, wondering what I could have done differently. But mostly, I just couldn't move on. I dated other people, nice men, successful men, men who treated me well, but every time things started getting serious, I'd panic. What if they suddenly changed like Marcus had? What if I couldn't trust my own judgment about people anymore? I never married. I never had children. I built a successful career in marketing, bought my own house, traveled the world. But romantically, I remained stuck, frozen in that moment when the love of my life turned into someone I didn't recognize. Last month, I was visiting my parents for my dad's 70th birthday. Jake was there too. Still single, still living at home, still my mother's precious baby at 40 years old. During dinner, my mom made one of her usual comments. "Sarah, when are you going to give me grandchildren? You're almost 38, and I'm getting too old to enjoy being a grandmother." I laughed bitterly. "Mom, you know I don't do serious relationships." "But why?" she pressed. "You're beautiful, successful, funny. Any man would be lucky to have you." "Because," I said, my voice sharp with years of pain. "The last time I tried to get married, my fiancé turned into an abusive psychopath, and I've never been able to trust anyone since." The room went silent. My dad stopped chewing. Jake looked uncomfortable. And my mom got this strange expression on her face. Guilty. Scared. "Mom," I said slowly, "what's that look for?" She glanced at my dad, then back at me. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Sarah, honey, we need to tell you something." What happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. My mother confessed that she and my dad had told Marcus I was cheating on him. Let me repeat that. My own parents, the people who were supposed to love and protect me, had deliberately sabotaged my engagement by telling my fiancé I was unfaithful. "We told him you were seeing your boss," my mom whispered, unable to look me in the eye. "We said we'd seen you with him, that we were worried about you but thought he should know." The room started spinning. "You? What?" We thought you were too young, my dad said, his voice defensive. 24 is no age to get married. We were trying to protect you. Protect me? I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. You destroyed my life. You destroyed the best relationship I ever had. And besides, my mom continued, as if she hadn't heard me, it wasn't fair to Jake. He was having such trouble finding someone, and here you were, younger than him, getting married first. It just didn't seem right. I stared at them in complete horror. My parents had ruined my chance at happiness because they thought I was too young, and because it wasn't fair to my brother that I'd found love before he had. For 14 years I'd blamed Marcus's mental health. For 14 years I'd blamed myself. For 14 years I'd lived with trust issues and commitment problems, all because my parents had lied to the man I loved and convinced him I was betraying him. Do you have any idea what you did to me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Do you understand that I haven't been able to have a real relationship since then? That I've been alone for 14 years because of your lies? My mom started crying. We thought it was for the best. We thought you'd find someone else, someone better. Better than the man I loved? The man who loved me so much that finding out I was cheating, which I wasn't, drove him to desperation? You took that away from me. You took away my chance at marriage, at children, at the family I wanted. Jake, who had been silent throughout this revelation, finally spoke up. Sarah, I never asked them to do that. I had no idea. I looked at my brother, my 40-year-old, single, still living at home brother, and felt a rage so pure it was almost calming. No, Jake, you didn't ask. But you also didn't have to watch the love of your life slowly lose his mind, thinking the woman he wanted to marry was lying to him every day. You didn't have to give back an engagement ring. You didn't have to spend 14 years wondering what was wrong with you, that you couldn't trust anyone anymore. That night, I went back to my hotel room and did something I'd never had the courage to do before. I looked up Marcus on social media. He was married, had been for 8 years. 2 beautiful children, a house in Colorado, working for a solar energy company just like he'd dreamed. His wife was lovely, a teacher with kind eyes and a warm smile. In every photo, Marcus looked genuinely happy, in a way I remembered from our early days together. Part of me felt devastated seeing him living the life we'd planned together. But mostly, I felt relief. He wasn't broken like I was. He'd healed. He'd moved on and found love again. I spent the next 2 days crafting a message to him. I told him everything. About my parents' lies, about the fake affair they'd invented, about how sorry I was that his pain had been based on deception. His response came within hours. Sarah, I can't tell you what this means to me. For years, I thought I was losing my mind during those months. I was so sure you were cheating, but you seemed so genuine when you denied it. I started questioning my own sanity. I'm so sorry I hit you. I'm so sorry I put you through that. I went to therapy for years afterward, trying to understand why I'd become someone I didn't recognize. Now it all makes sense. I'm happily married now, but I want you to know what we had was real. It was beautiful, and I'm so sorry your parents took that away from both of us. We exchanged a few more messages. He told me about his wife, his kids, his work. I told him about my career, my travels, my life. It felt like closure, finally, after 14 years. But I wasn't done with my parents. I drove back to their house the next morning. Jake was at work, so it was just the 3 of us. I need you to understand something, I told them, sitting in their living room like I was conducting a business meeting. What you didn't just ruin my engagement, it ruined my life. Sarah, please, my mom started. No, let me finish. You were so worried about Jake not finding love that you destroyed mine. Well, congratulations. Your plan worked perfectly. Jake is still single at 40, still living in your basement, and I've spent 14 years alone. But here's the beautiful part. Marcus moved on. He's happily married with 2 kids and a successful career, so really the only lives you destroyed were Jake's and mine. My dad shifted uncomfortably. We thought we were doing what was best. For who? Not for me. Not for Marcus. And clearly not for Jake, who's still exactly where he was 14 years ago. The only people it benefited were you, because you got to keep controlling your children's lives. I stood up and walked to the mantel where dozens of family photos displayed their perfect little family. Photos of Jake at various ages, photos of me achieving various milestones, photos of family vacations and holidays. You know what I realized? I said, picking up a photo of Jake's college graduation. All these years, you made me feel guilty for being successful, for being independent, for finding love. You made me think there was something wrong with me for wanting different things than Jake wanted, but the truth is, you were just scared of losing control." I turned to face them. "Well, you've lost it anyway. I'm moving to Seattle next month. I got offered a position with a tech startup there, and I'm taking it. I'm starting over, at 38, which is something I should have done 14 years ago." My mother's face went pale. "Sarah, you can't just leave, we're family." "Family doesn't sabotage each other's happiness," I replied. "Family doesn't lie and manipulate and destroy relationships out of jealousy and control." But the real revenge came from something I discovered completely by accident. As I was packing up my childhood bedroom later that day, I found an old shoebox full of letters and cards. At the bottom was a letter addressed to me in handwriting I didn't recognize at first. It was from Marcus, written just a few days after our fight, never sent. In it, he poured out his heart. He told me about the conversations he'd had with my parents, how they'd told him they'd seen me with another man, how sorry they seemed for him. He wrote about how much he loved me, how the thought of losing me was killing him, how he didn't know what to believe anymore. "I know I've been acting crazy," he wrote. "I know I hurt you, and I hate myself for it. But Sarah, if you're really seeing someone else, please just tell me the truth. I can handle the truth. It's the not knowing that's destroying me. I love you so much that I'd rather know for certain and lose you than keep living in this nightmare of suspicion and doubt." The letter was dated 3 days before I broke off our engagement, 3 days before I gave up on us completely. He'd been planning to give me this letter, to try one more time to save our relationship with honesty and vulnerability, but I'd ended things before he got the chance. I sat on my childhood bed, reading this letter from the man I'd loved more than anyone before or since, and I finally understood the full scope of what my parents had stolen from us. Not just our relationship, but our chance to fight for it, our chance to communicate through the crisis they'd created. That evening, I walked downstairs where my parents were watching television. Jake sprawled on the couch beside them, like he was still 16 years old. "I found something interesting today," I said, holding up the letter. My mother took one look at it and started crying again. "This is a letter Marcus wrote to me, but never sent," I continued. "A letter where he begged me to just tell him the truth about the affair you convinced him I was having. A letter where he apologized for how he'd been acting and tried to save our relationship." I looked directly at my father. "Do you know what would have happened if he'd given me this letter? I would have told him the truth, that there was no affair. We would have talked. We might have figured out that someone was lying to him. We might have saved our relationship." "Sarah," my dad started, but he never got the chance to give it to me, because 3 days later I broke up with him. 3 days later, I gave up on the love of my life because I thought he'd had some kind of mental breakdown. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my purse. "I'm going to Seattle," I announced, "and I want you to know that every time you ask me about grandchildren, every time you wonder why I'm still single, every time you feel sad about me being alone, I want you to remember this conversation. I want you to remember that you chose Jake's feelings over my happiness, and I want you to remember that it didn't even help him." Jake, who had been pretending to watch TV, finally looked up. "Sarah, I'm sorry, I never wanted this." "I know you didn't, Jake," I said, my voice softening slightly. "But you also never left home. You never became independent. You let them keep you here, keep you dependent, keep you from growing up. And they used your loneliness as an excuse to destroy my chance at happiness. We're both victims here, but at least I'm finally doing something about it." 6 months later, I'm writing this from my new apartment in Seattle. I can see the Space Needle from my window, and I'm working for a company I love with people who respect me. I haven't spoken to my parents since that day. Jake texts me occasionally. He's in therapy now, trying to figure out how to live independently at 41. I hope he makes it. As for Marcus and me, we're not in regular contact, but we've made peace with our past. He sent me a photo of his daughter's first day of school last month, and I sent him a picture of the sunset from my new apartment. It's not romantic love anymore, but it's forgiveness, and that's enough. The revenge my parents got wasn't what they planned. They thought they were protecting me and being fair to Jake. Instead, they got exactly what they feared most: a daughter who moved far away and a son who still can't function as an adult. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well, far away from the people who tried to control your story. If this story hit you in the feels, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories about justice, family drama, and finding the strength to start over. And tell me in the comments, have you ever discovered that someone close to you sabotaged your happiness? I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear your story too.